to The Advocate, a program where we break down justice reforms, human rights, and the fight for a fairer society. My name is Stephen Isabu, and today we're talking about World Day of Social Justice. World Day of Social Justice marked every February 20th. For many Nigerians, social justice isn't just a big deal. It is about survival. With rising prices, the floating of the naira, and no more fuel subsidy, life has become even tougher. This year's theme, Empowering Inclusion, Bridging Gaps for Social Justice, reminds all of us that fairness and equal opportunities should be for everyone, not just a few. So, how do we close the gap and make justice work for all? Stay with us as we break it down and hear from those pushing for real change. Fortunately, I have a guest with me in the studio, and as we're looking eye to eye now, I'd like you to introduce himself.
All right, thank you very much. My name is KENECHUKWU, a lawyer by training, the current institutional partnerships lead at PPDC, and also the secretary of the Human Rights Law Committee of the International Bar Association, IBA.
Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Now, let's start with the basics. What is social justice? And more importantly, how does it affect the everyday life of the average Nigerian struggling with high costs of living and fewer opportunities?
All right, first and foremost, before you talk about social justice, you look at the term justice. And justice has been said to also be a synonym for fairness, right? So whereas other forms of justice looks at individual areas of justice, like the distributive justice, the legal justice, and the rest of that, social justice actually deals with the holistic strata of the society to say what is being fair, what is distributed equally, evenly, equitability, looking at the entire society to make sure no one is left behind in the development that goes on. Social justice looks at an inclusion of the entire society, the poorest in the society. Are they being carried along in the policies? Do we even care that people who are poor have a say in how their lives are and they have a good life?
Interesting. Now, looking at our present reality, what are the most pressing social justice issues facing Nigerians today?
All right. So, like a justice of the Supreme Court once said, he said, only the living can praise the Lord. So, we're talking about the issues that are pressing. You have to look at the issues that are important for survival. And at the moment, one of the key pressing issues is economic hardship. So with the removal of subsidy and high cost of goods, high cost of everything, everything seems to be going up. And we still operate a dollarized economy where we are still pegging whatever we do with the rise and fall of dollar. And that's not even static. And one thing I found in Nigeria is that whatever prices go up rarely come down. They just remain up there. So I would want to think that economic hardship and, just the quest for survival is one of the major issues we are facing currently in Nigeria. One of the major social justice issues, because take for instance, if key to social justice is economic equality, key to social justice is that people have economic justice, which is, people are paid wages for their work, people are paid for their work, but where what you are paid can no longer even take you to do the work and back, then you see that there is a key issue that has come up in that respect.
Well, of course, like some will say, achieving social justice isn't easy. I'd like to know what you think is the biggest challenge standing in the way right now.
The challenge standing in the way of our attaining social justice, there are actually two things that are intertwined.
Okay.
In my own, to my understanding. The first is the issue of leadership, and involved in the issue of leadership is corruption. Because when you have good leaders, resources are able to be allocated equitably, right? But because you don't have good leaders, even the mobilization of those resources become an issue. But more critical is where you have those, the resources, or even the little resources you have, corruption has made it impossible for equal distribution. So that creates a clog in the wheel of our social justice as a country in Nigeria.
All right. Again, people often say that social justice isn't just a conversation, it's a solution. How does social justice help to fight poverty?
Well, I'm someone that believes that people can move from one level to another level if given the opportunity. So the way it fights poverty is by creating equal opportunities for every citizen. You have equal opportunities. And I mean, that is the origin or the history behind Nigeria going into both the quota system, going into the federal character system, because we must show that we have equal opportunities. Everybody should be able to, assess the opportunities. Then let's leave it at what people now do with the opportunities, which will now create what level of wealth they will get into. But there is a basic requirement that is needed for every society to be in place to make people come out of poverty. And when I'm talking about opportunities, I'm not just talking about going to disperse money to people or to give people money. Let people have access to opportunities.
When you talk about have access, what exactly do you have in mind?
So for instance, can a poor Nigerian go to the bank and take a loan to start his business? The answer is almost no, because the interest rates are skyrocketing. They will ask you for all manner of things. They will ask documentation alone to access a loan can take you almost 1 year, depending on who you are. Then you're looking at a society, we're looking at that woman who wants to start an akara business from which she will train her children. Does she even know how to walk into a bank to deal with that? So, and that also takes us to the other issue of how it pulls people out of poverty. Education, equal access to literacy, equal access to education, because people even need to know how to do things to get out of it. So when you have the access that we're talking about, let's have a society where anybody can become anything. Let's not weaponize poverty.
Okay, moving away a little from poverty, let's talk about gender inequality and discrimination. How does social justice fight against this?
Again, equality is key. And we need to understand what equality is. And I mean, people need to, for a society as Nigeria and, really almost every other part of Africa, where we are coming from, a history that is mixed in the sense that we have a history where women have always been in the forefront, and yet women don't have the same economic strength as the men. So when you're talking about inequalities are we looking at in terms of, employment rates? Are there discrimination in terms of, we can't employ women here? Are there jobs that are still gender-based? Are there roles that are still classified as for only men? Are there things we still don't allow women to do, right? What social justice fights to do in this instance is to make sure that those policies and those rules are no longer there, that there is equal access to education, there is equal access to financing, there is equal access to housing. Are women allowed to even stand as sureties for people? Are women allowed to buy lands in certain areas of the country? Are women allowed to, little things as getting into a hotel and deciding to lodge? Some hotels will ask you to bring a mail to come and sign before they let you in.
As a woman.
So you can now imagine, even to get into some social places like clubs, they won't allow you get in if you don't have any man with you. So when we are talking about equality and inclusion, it should be a general standard for all, and not, let's not raise the bar high for women and lower it for men. No, let the standards be equal. So if people are getting into politics, for instance, women who want to get into leadership, for instance, are they able to do that? Are they able to get into that place easily? Are they able to come out and freely do what they want without the hindrances of feeling that they are women? And again, we must also put into consideration that we must make available provision that gives room for their peculiarities. You and I know that women have peculiarities, so we should make sure we have room that allows them despite their peculiarities.
I'd like you to talk about the policies or actions that can truly create this desired change we're talking about. What are those policies? For instance, let's even start by obeying the ones we have on ground already before looking for more ones. Our Constitution provides for the human rights, it provides for what should be social justice rights in Nigeria. How far have we gone with that? So one of the fundamental principles and policies of government in Nigeria is to make sure there is adequate food, adequate housing. How far are we going? Yes, we have the right to life, but akin to the right to life, if I don't have a good place to stay, if I don't have a homestead, then what am I living for? If I have the right to live and yet I can't access health care freely, I can't access, health care without paying through my nose, then what are we talking about? Again, we are also now seeing there's a push for the amendment of the Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act, the VAP Act. That in itself is a strong policy that, look, if
the act is amended, in line with what we already have, women will be protected to an extent, at least from gender-based violence. So the other policies that we would like to see in place are policies that allow people to really be themselves without, some persons have also asked us to look at to take a second look at the quota system, to take a second look at our federal character system. Why are they asking to do this? It's not because those things are not properly put, but the way they are being used. We must make policies that make sure that every Nigerian is seen as a Nigerian, every Nigerian is seen as a citizen, every Nigerian is seen as a human being. Every Nigerian is seen as a person who is capable of becoming whatever he wants to become, despite where you are from or where you're living at. Or let's take away those. When we talk about racism, right, we find it difficult to believe that there's also racism among the blacks, which is you come to certain societies and oh, this one is not from my side. Oh, this one is not from my side. No. We look at merit. It's also time for us to look at merit, to look at what people can offer as against where those people are from.
Now, let's look at the government, because we know that government plays a very vital role, a major role. But how much is being done? How much would you say government is doing about all this?
Well, when you say government, it's actually very broad.
Yeah.
In a broad sense.
Looking at the federal government.
So if we look at the federal government, they may be doing their best, but their best is not enough.
How do you mean?
When you're a leader and people are hungry, you can't tell me you are doing well. If you want to check the rate of hunger in this town, can you check the crime rate in the last 1 year? Has it not gone up? I'm not justifying crime, but we do a lot of work around the custodial centers, the prisons as they were previously called. And you see people who are there for offenses that are very petty, such as stealing food, offenses such as, very minor petty offenses, and people are going in for it. There's hunger in the land, whether we like it or not. So government has a lot to do in ensuring equality. Even if we want to be a capitalist society, agreed, but let's still take on the least in the society. Every organization or society is rated by the least person amongst them, not by the best person. We may have the Africa's richest man come from Nigeria, but don't forget that 7 or 8 out of every 10 Nigerians are living in abject poverty. They're living in multi-dimensional poverty. So the government needs to, get back to what it should be doing, which is what we've elected them to do, which is stand for us, speak for us, take decisions that will favor us, not decisions that will favor just them, and not be obstinate about taking decisions. Take feedback. A good indices for measuring every government is responsiveness. An indicator of measuring good governance is responsiveness. And if the government is not responsive, is not listening to the yearnings of the people, is not able to take feedback and act on it, then I wonder what the government is set up for. I like the fact that the president has asked all his ministers to begin to give us their scorecards. But we need to start from Mr. President's scorecard. Unless he wants to tell us, his own will come after all the ministers have presented theirs. I mean, it's even a good step in the right direction. Let the ministers start talking. Let's engage them. Let's engage them. What have you done here? What have you done here? What have you done here? With so amount given to you. It's our country. And social justice entails that, look, I need to be a part of that process. It's equality. And if we are equal as a country, then we should be able to have a say. Not to talk about the people who've elected to go into the National Assembly, who just do what they like, jump from one party to another just as they wish, without any regards to the people who voted them, as if they were voted in the first place.
Thank you so much for joining us on the program today, The Advocate. We want to really appreciate you for coming, and we hope that by this time next year, when we'll be talking about this same issue, Nigeria would have become fairer for everyone. Thank you again for coming on the program.
Thank you very much, Stephen. I appreciate it.
Well, that's government, but beyond government, what role do individuals like you and I have to play in making society fairer?
We have to do our part.
Yes, what's the part that we need to do?
Educating the next person. Very critical. What we are doing on this show now is also very important, because we are helping people know these are their rights. Let's take, for instance, if I give you a check for, let's say, 50 million, and I put it in an envelope, and I give it to you sealed, and you've never opened that check, you won't even know how rich you were. Our Constitution provides for so many things that guarantee social justice and human rights in this country. But how many Nigerians are aware? So as individuals, we should be able to help the person next to us.
But I understand some of those ones are not justiciable. That's what some of your colleagues always say.
Chapter 2
Yes.
of the 1999 Constitution.
Yes.
If they are not justiciable, there are other ways to go around it.
What other ways?
There are a lot of other ways to go around it.
Let's hear from you.
Number one, you can use the instrument of pressure to pressure the government to do those things. Number two, if you look at the regional instruments, for instance, the African Charter on People and Human Rights, and all of that. If you look at those instruments, they have provisions similar to that, which you can take up to the African courts, right? Again, there's a whole lot of politics around what happens in the African courts, and if the nations will want to implement it, that's another thing. So you begin to ask yourself, and that boils down to one other key thing which everybody should do, which is to participate in government. And how do you participate in governance? By periodic elections. Do you participate in the elections? The truth is that when you stay away from elections, the ruling class have their way. But when everybody gets involved, gradually we're making progress, but we are not there yet.
All right, let's make some progress. One key issue is employment and social inclusion, like you mentioned earlier. Now, I'd like to know how we can create jobs and ensure everyone has a fair shot at it.
It's not just the government that creates jobs, right? But the government needs to make the society have a good economic stability, make the society in a way that is economic friendly, so that if individuals want to start businesses and hire people, they are not unnecessarily paying additional cost. So for instance, you open your shop in Wusetu. Today the local government comes. Tomorrow the FCDA comes. Next tomorrow the environmental people come. The other day there's radio and television license. The other time there is... I know in the last 8 years there were efforts around the ease of doing business, led by the current Minister for Trade and Investment. She used to be the one leading that committee, and they've done a lot of work, to be honest, in terms of ease of doing business, ease of registration of business and the rest of that. But we also need to have a strong economy so that businesses can thrive. And when businesses thrive, they give employment to people. No strong economy is ever run by civil servants. Any society you go and civil servants are the rich guys there, it doesn't work that way. The business environment must be friendly in a way that entrepreneurs and business people have a good environment to do their business. And when the business is flowing, more people will be recruited and employed. But that notwithstanding, Nigerians should, look out for themselves by also looking for ways of becoming engaged proactively, by themselves. Look at businesses, look at things around. And Nigeria is a good place to run business because of our population. There is hardly any idea that will not sell in our country because of our population.
Although some people have contended that population that is poor is on the negative. Well, let's go back a little to government, because we've been talking about government. Now, speaking of government effort, let's take a look back at past government. We've seen past administrations introduce initiatives like the Petroleum Trust Fund under Abacha, and then we also had the Shaw P under Goodluck Jonathan administration. What do you think this current government has put in place to promote social justice in the face of the economic situation we're going through?
I think one of the key things I will give kudos to President Tinubu's administration is the Student Loan Act and establishing the Nigerian Loan Fund, Education Loan Fund, NEL Fund. That is a key thing because it increases access to financing through education. So people can now go to school without bothering to where the school fees will come from. And it is structured in a way that is easy to apply, reduces interface with human beings, so corruption is brought down in that aspect. So I must give it to them that's one of the areas that have critically done something different, and I must appreciate them for that. I also hear there are some monies that are being shared in some, what used to be called trader money in the last administration. I'm not sure if the name is being called now, but I hear that there was some, But for me, that Students' Loan Act is a game changer, and it's something they've done that will improve social justice, which I'm very much happy about.
Good to hear that from you. Now, let me take us back to the theme for this year. What would you think is the significance of the theme for the year?
Okay, this year's theme for the World Social Justice Day is on strengthening a just transition for a sustainable future.
A
just transition for a sustainable future. So you're looking at the transition in the society globally. This is the global team. And we are looking at people moving from petroleum economy. People are decarbonizing. People are looking at the environmental justice. People are looking at, okay, how do we reduce our carbon emissions? How do we reduce this impact? How we get into green economy, and all of that. So the idea is, while you are doing this, how do you ensure that people don't lose their jobs in the process? How are you focusing on the people as you transition? Not just talking about the planet. Yes, we want to save the environment. But while we are saving the environment, can we also have a human face to it? Can we look at the people who are actually involved in this process to make sure that while you are doing those things, people don't lose their jobs unnecessarily, or you find alternatives for them. So while we are transitioning, we are decarbonizing, we are taking care of the environment. We are looking for ways to reduce, and using technology, really, we need to find ways to still keep people running and people living. So that's the core of this team, right? And for us in Nigeria, what that says to us, we've not even started our decarbonization. We are still in a different phase, right? But while industries are coming up, really, while we are now using technology, modern technology, while we are looking at other economies, what happens to the people? What happens to the human beings? What happens to the people? We are saying this year, take out 20th February, which is the World Social Justice Day, to think of the people who are involved. Think of the people who are in the labor force. Think of the people who those decisions are going to affect. For the government, as they sign agreement, bilateral and multilateral agreements, they should be able to put a human face to it to make sure that it doesn't take out, the human face in it, really.
Now, as we cruise home, I like to find out from you who the most affected are by injustice.
Young children, women, persons living with disabilities, vulnerable, the everyday Nigerians. There's 7 out of 10 people who can't find 3 square meals a day. Let's even look for two circle meals, not even if they are not square. Let's look for 2 circle meals. The young, the vulnerable, the women, the children, they're affected. And social justice issues, we just want justice for all. We want fairness. Let's have a society that is fair. A society that is fair. We are not saying, everybody should become billionaires. No, but if I want to be a poor man, let me have a benchmark where I'm not falling under. Let there be a place where, look, I'm surviving. We need to look at, a social security system. If I lose my job today, somehow Nigerians have found a way, or Africans have found a way to turn family members into their social security. When anything happens, you fall back on family. And thank goodness, our families are still out there to support us. Imagine if we get to a situation where everybody is fending just for himself. What happens to people? The government, the society, every one of us is employed to make sure that you do what is fair at all times. Put a human face to it. These are human beings. These are people. Put a human face to it.
Thank you so much for joining us on the program today, The Advocate. We want to really appreciate you for coming, and we hope that by this time next year, when we'll be talking about this same issue, Nigeria would have become fairer for everyone. Thank you again for coming on the program.
Thank you very much, Stephen. I appreciate it.